Welcome, healthy friends, to the reality of health. You know this if you can see the screen right now. Man, when you get hurt, you're like, oh, really? Did that just happen? Now I gotta deal with this for the next couple days or a couple weeks or maybe even a lot longer than that. Man, when you hurt your skin, you're like, oh, can't believe I did that. We all go through this. Today we're going to talk about how you can heal these up. And of course, this is my opinion. I'm not giving you medical advice. If you need real medical advice because it's serious, yeah, go get that. This is for aftercare. Or, yeah, you did something that, you can handle yourself. You don't have to go see a professional to do it. Because before professionals, how did people heal their skin wounds? Would it be a village doctor? Yeah, maybe. Or it was your grandma or your mom. Somebody's like, they looked at it and they're like, oh, that's not that bad. They're like, that's not that bad. And you're like, really? Because it hurts a lot. And they're like, ah, you big baby. Right? We've all been through that one. I just wanted to, let me just say this. I thought about this the other day and I was like, what's so irritating? And then you just want it fixed as fast as possible. You're like, really, this is going to affect my day to day. Let's say you type a lot and you had something with your fingers. You're like, oh, that's going to interrupt my job. Or anything else it's just such an issue. Well, I'm going to help you heal that faster. That's my diatribe. So let's get going. Here we have the normal wound types. Normal skin. This is what an incision looks like. Of course, a laceration is never that precise because it's not a razor knife, if you know what I mean. You can have an abrasion, like a scrape. Those are always so really, they never stop bleeding and they always seem to hurt a lot. Puncture, that's the grossest one I can think of. If you're a non-needle person like me, you know that one. Then you have a penetration wound, like a knife stab or a full nail through. Yeah, I know you can feel it when you think about it. I'm sorry, but it goes all the way through. You're like, oh, that was a bad one. Contusion. That, you can see how in the graph here, photo, it's kind of like, it's not as bad as the red you see everywhere else, but it's sort of like, yeah, there's something really wrong there. And then a hematoma, when you have broken blood vessels or larger blood vessels underneath the skin. And of course, that blood has to go somewhere. These are painful as well, cause a lot of inflammation. Don't worry. I'm going to help you through all of these. It's not as bad as you might think. And when you have really good healing techniques, you won't end up with problems. We're going to get into what those problems are. These can be serious. They can be painful. They can even lead to scars, which nobody wants. Okay, let's go to, you're sitting there and you're thinking, ooh, this is bad. I should probably go and put a bacterial cream on that. That's not always the best thing. Essentially what you're doing is your skin is trying to heal itself. It's inflamed, it's red. There's a lot of circulation there. There's a lot of things going on. And we want to put a cream on it, like an antibacterial cream on it. What that does is it stops the healing response. It interferes with it, I should say. And you can get scars. The tissue is, in some areas, little bits and pieces are dead or are dying. And then the terrain comes in and it wants to clean it up. You think of it as an infection. That's only when it gets really bad. You know what I mean? I mean, a normal skin issue, you don't get infected. But if you stop the regeneration process, then you can get infected and then end up in the hospital. So I believe that the cream is only good in an emergency. Whatever that emergency is for you, you could be in the middle of nowhere and you're like, okay, I need to make sure this doesn't, go too far. It could be a large surface area. Whatever the situation that you think is an emergency is up to you. Your intuition will tell you when you need to put something on it that you keep as an emergency. I keep stuff like this in my house. I'm not saying you should never use it. But if you stop the healing response, you can get scars. And scars have problems in the body. I have a whole scar episode. They really interrupt your central nervous system. You have to be a bit careful, okay? All right. And this is what scars look like, of which we all know. This is not good for you. You don't want these. They interrupt your entire central nervous system, like I just said. Okay? So be careful. This is not what we want. We want to heal. We don't want to scar. People associate those two as the same thing. They are not the same thing. There's nothing good about this. And if you do research on scars, you'll realize these aren't good. What you can do, or one of the things you can do, is you can add probiotics to your wound. So the mind says, I don't want to get infected, so I want to keep bad bacteria down. There is no such thing as bad bacteria. But here's what you can do. You can add good bacteria, good flora to the wound and then dress it. Or you could just put it on your wound and just leave it there. You can make a spray bottle. You could add it to oils. You could add it to, healthy creams. None of that garbage, commercial garbage. But you can add probiotics to your wound the same way you would add it to your gut. Yeah. Yes, that's a thing. In this case, they're just trying to show you that you can do probiotics in a spray bottle. A little easier on a wound just to spray it than it is to rub it, if you know what I mean. Regardless, you can add probiotics to any wound you have. Great. All right, moving on. Let's go to the single best burn relief you can get. I don't know if you've ever heard this before. So a few years ago, I burned myself on my left thumb, mostly my thumb and my hand. It was a large portion. And let me tell you, it was a very serious oil burn. The pain was so great. And I'm a little bit of a baby because I guess I'm a man, but it hurt. I wasn't crying, but it was really, really bad. And my friend was like, that's pretty bad. You want to go to ER? I said, no, I don't do that. So we searched online for things. I put stuff on it. Nothing was helping. The pain was just like, oh no. And by the way, it was late at night, so it was even worse. Came across yellow mustard. People swore by it. I said, I don't care what it is. I don't care. Just give it to me. Let's put it on. Ran to the refrigerator, put it on. The results were immediate. It wasn't the fact that it was cold. It was literally the fact that somehow, mustard, obviously, they add turmeric for color because mustard's kind of like a dirty brown and nobody likes that look. There's vinegar in there. There's water. Sometimes they add yellow dye. I don't care what's in there because when you're in that much pain, I am telling you right now, you should have a large amount of this in your refrigerator. Let's say you have a small burn. Well, you don't need a lot. But what if you had a large burn, like something really major happened, and you're really, really hurting? Maybe you're by yourself. You can get to the fridge, get this stuff, if you have a large amount, and put it all over your arm or your face or whatever it is, and at least stop the pain so you can handle the situation. I tell everybody about this all the time. I think I even talked about it in the cast once. This is your best friend for burns. And then almost everything I talk about from here on after will work for burns. Not everything works for, let's go back to wounds. Not everything works for all of these, okay? But yellow mustard absolutely works for burns, and almost everything else will work for everything else. All the stuff I'm going to show you anyway. Moving on. One of my favorite brands of all time. There isn't a better aloe in the world. You could say, Eric, I have my own aloe plant. Yeah, I'm going to say you probably do. It's not this. And it's not grown the same way and doesn't have the same amount of care, and I don't know how to describe it. If you know this company like I do, you would know what I'm trying to say. The way that the lady who owns this company grows all of her products is insane. And the quantity of the mucopolysaccharides in her product is higher than anything you have in your home. It's grown a specific way. It's extremely powerful. A lot of science backing it. But let me show you a couple things. First off, I talk about a lot of skin in my episodes because I believe that you should take care of the largest organ in your body, and people want to be, attractive. So why not use the best lotion that you can use, bar none? Literally the best. If you want to buy a lotion that's creamy and put it on your hands and do anything in your body, I've talked about this before, it's the best. Eric, you can't say it's the best. You have not tried every single product on the market. Yeah, well, I've tried, and I know a lot about skincare because that's been a primary focus of the last 35 years of my life. I understand nutrition, and I understand the human body, and I know what this stuff does, and I've given it to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people I've dealt with nothing but rave reviews. Okay? So, you can tell me, matter of fact, please tell me, if you know of a better product than this, put it in the comments. Let others know. I would love to know other products that are super, super good that somebody made that have the attention to detail and the amount of science and the quality behind it and the results than this stuff. Okay? I welcome it, actually, because I'm in this industry and I want the best stuff. Anyway, I wanted to show you this product here. It's called Skin Gel. Miraculous. If I ever had a burn, by the way, I use this all the time, and when I did burn myself, I used this after the mustard got rid of the pain. By the way, that mustard worked for all of the pain all throughout the night. I used it most of the next day, and then I didn't need it anymore. So it didn't just mask the pain. It actually got rid of the pain in about, I want to say, 24 hours. And then of course, I could use Skin Gel and something else I'm going to show you and wrap it up. And it was, you had to deal with it at that point. But the pain was gone. The yellow mustard took that pain away. And I don't think it matters what brand, actually. I think just normal yellow mustard. Anyway, Skin Gel, one of the most healing things I've ever seen in all of my life. The great thing about it is it doesn't impact the terrain of your body. It's not antibacterial. It's not antiviral and all that other nonsense. It's healing and regenerative. Feels good on the skin. Fantastic for like sunburn or anything you get. Any wound you have. It is probably considered. So let me just digress a second and say there are bum issues that people have, you know what I mean, down there, like hemorrhoids. This is probably the best hemorrhoid thing you've ever seen. Okay, fantastic. Anything that you would have with a baby in that area, best you've ever used. What's the other one? The other one that I know of that people use. What do you call those? Bed sores. So when you're in the hospital, this is actually has legit science and studies and photos and everything else showing that it heals bed sores. Yes, those things are nasty. Those things have killed people in hospitals. Skin gel by Aloe Life has been known to reverse it while you're in the hospital. How many things can you say that does that? Anyway, you can always add her juice to a liquid, like a little bit of water, put it in a spray bottle and mist it onto anything. So if it's hard to touch it, that's a great way to go too. Anyway, this is the best product. You can do her, let's see, let's just go to it really fast. So the juice. Right here, Aloe Gold. This is a miraculous product. In other words, you can put this on anything you have. You can put it in your body. You can put it on your body. It is regenerative. Not many things in nature are regenerative. I'm going to show you another one in a second. But staple in my home. Okay, moving on. I've talked about this before in the Band-Aids episode. You really should be using your own natural Band-Aids. Band-Aids are terrible. They're full of plastic. They're nasty. This one that you can make yourself, you just buy flax linen, not dyed, the softest you can buy, and cut your own bandages. You can put them around yourself, right? And with that, now you have a healing material. A material doesn't interfere with your body. I did have a clothing and fabrics episode talking about the frequencies that are associated with fabrics and all this kind of stuff. The guy that created it was an agriculturist, and he figured out that plants have certain frequencies, and flax linen was at 5,000 hertz, and your body's at 100, so it's very healing. Regardless, when you use flax in your life, you feel better. I'm telling you, it's just ask anybody who uses it. This stuff's been going on forever. My point is you can use this as a bandage and increase the healing rate. Okay? Next would be colloidal silver. You've heard of this maybe for a while, but colloidal silver is not necessarily killing bacteria so much as it is adding energy to the site, the wound. So if you can regenerate faster, that means you don't deteriorate faster, right? Let's get healing going. Let's increase the energy in the area. And one of the ways you can do that is with silver. Wonderful stuff. Tons of proven situations. So many different, there's books on it and research scientists that use it. Bruce Becker is pretty much the world's renowned expert on silver. This is great stuff. Cheap. You can buy it any way you want. You can do sprays and drops, and you can even make it yourself, believe it or not. all the brands say our way is better and this parts per million is better, and there's all. I don't think it really matters. I've used all kinds of them over the years and they all seem to work really, really well. By the way, if I get sick, like sinusy and stuff, I use this in the nasal area, in the eyes, in the ears, in my throat. I use it all the time just because I want to regenerate tissue so I don't feel as bad as you know, I just want to lower the feeling of feeling bad. You know what I mean? Probably my favorite thing you could ever use when you have a cut or a wound is bone broth. Somehow, Eric, I knew you were going to say that because you talk about it all the time. Well, yeah, because you actually are a collagen water mineral gel-like being. And that type of protein is extremely important. You need as much collagen as you can get. And one of the best ways is bone broth. It's so concentrated. But yes, you still get it in your beef and your chicken and whatever you eat. You don't get it in plant sources. It has to come from animal sources. Regardless, if you use bone broth, you get the collagen. But you know what else you get? You get minerals, and the number one you get is silica. Silica is responsible for all the electrical conduction in your body. It makes up the matrix of your fascia. So if you want to heal scars properly, you need something else I'm going to talk about, but you're going to need silica, water, and collagen. You're also going to, well, let me just say this. Before I go further. The healing qualities of bone broth are so good. There are no downsides. It's nothing but nutritive to the body. And it's, if you were to, let's say, funnel down the basics of a living human, a cow, your dog, you essentially end up with like bone broth. Collagen, minerals, water. There's, of course, vitamins and stuff like that. But I'm talking about the basics. You have water, minerals, protein. That's basically what you are. And if you can make it in something like this that tastes good, you can add it to whatever soup you want, eat it straight, drink it as a broth. It's awesome. And by the way, we're going into winter. Great thing to have. Like, instead of just going and saying, I'm going to get some tea or coffee, why don't you have some bone broth? It's just like having some broth. It's tasty and goodness. I'm just saying. Anyway, this is life-giving. Move on, Eric. That's enough about bone broth. Well, I have an episode on bone broth because it's that good. There's one more thing that makes up your body and you need for wound healing. And if you don't see my tab already, that would be saturated fat and cholesterol. Eric, I heard saturated fat and cholesterol is bad for you. It causes heart disease and all kinds of stuff. No, your body uses saturated fat to build you. Without fat, you would be dried up and hard. Without cholesterol, you couldn't make what we consider hormones. You wouldn't have what we consider cells. You wouldn't have a lot of things, including wound healing. You wouldn't have bile. I could go on and on. What can you do with saturated fat and cholesterol? You literally can put it on your wound. You could take beef tallow and add it to your wound. You could take pasture-raised pork lard, add it to a wound. You could take literally egg yolk and add it to a wound and it'll heal. Because your body needs those nutrients. I'm not saying to put an egg yolk on your wound, obviously. I'm using it as a metaphor. Regardless, you need more saturated fat and cholesterol if you're hurting, and you can put it on site. One of the other things you can do, which if you know me at all, I like essential oils. Essential oils are amazing. I have many of them, and I use them all the time. Your skin is extremely sensitive to oils, and your skin is also regenerative quite quickly. I mean, it regenerates quick, okay? So you can take advantage of essential oils that will speed that process. Things like German chamomile. I absolutely love this stuff. I put it in all kinds of things. Frankincense is a known healer. Rosemary is fantastic for your skin. You know I like jojoba oil. It's the only vegetable oil coming from plants that I think is good for humans. Everything else should be coming from animals. Or castor oil. So castor and jojoba. I forgot that one. Doesn't matter. Point is, those are great. And then you can use like rose hip seed oil. Oh man, super good for skin. I'm not a big fan of lavender, although it does help the skin. I'd much rather see you use other ones. Point is, essential oils added to, let's say, a contusion or a bruise, along with a carrier oil, or a wound, like a cut or an abrasion or a puncture, essential oils will work to help lower inflammation, not take it away completely because you don't want to lose all inflammation. It'll help lower pain a little bit, make it a little more comfortable, but it also increases regeneration so you heal faster. And that's the point, okay? The best that you can use as a carrier oil, and you should always use a carrier oil when you use essential oils. Don't use them direct. Is castor oil. And this is the best castor oil you can get. As long as it's organic and cold pressed and you can prove it, that's what you want. But I'm a big fan of Queen of Thrones. She has a great company. She knows what she's doing. There's nobody else that does what she does. And I'm hard pressed to find another one that's better. Castor oil is extremely healing for bruising and contusions and what's that called again? I forgot. Hematoma, right. If you want to take whatever you're putting on your skin and force it and get it in past the layers, that's castor oil. Castor oil is a carrier of whatever you use and brings it as deep as it can, which is usually pretty deep. You can add this to a bandage, like the linen, and then drop a couple essential oils on there. You could do a castor oil pack. If you have a larger hematoma, let's say you fell and you hit your bum and you've got a big hematoma there, well, then you would want to use a larger castor oil pack, which she makes. She makes the best ones, period. If you want to make your own, just use linen. And then add maybe some essential oils to that if you want. Use that as much as you possibly can. You'll lower the pain. You will increase circulation. You'll get rid of tissue that's dead and dying because, yes, you destroyed some tissue. You damaged it. It is nothing but healing. And, the medical profession doesn't have anything that can do what this does. And they can't patent it, so they'll never tell you about it. There's a quick tip for you. The one that I'm not a big fan of is hydrogen peroxide. And the reason is this is only an emergency use product. It's kind of like if you could just flush your wound with clean water, like distilled water, not tap water, first, and then do any of the other methods I talked about and bandage, you'd be better off. This is only like the same thing with, what is the one I talked about here? Ointments. These antibacterial ointments, these are only like if you're in that situation. Otherwise, don't use these. Eric, I've heard hydrogen peroxide my whole life. Yeah, it's too much. It's affecting, let me put it this way. You have a terrain, which I'm going to get into in a minute, and you either want that to work for you or you kill it. And when you just go after it with antibiotic creams and antibiotics, you're killing everything. You know this. You've heard this. Like if you go on antibiotics, you should be eating yogurt and taking probiotics because you're killing off your microbiome. Well, your microbiome is on your skin too. And a wound is being healed by your terrain, and you go and kill it with hydrogen peroxide. There's no reason for that. I'm just saying. This is emergency only. And I'm never going to tell you not to use it in emergency. I'm going to say, yeah, go for it. I mean, there's times where you have to use things like this. Even just antibiotics. If you're in that situation where you're so sick that it's a real problem and you have to use antibiotics, then that's what you use. You can then clean up and help your body later. But the first thing is stay alive. Right? What we always want to do is cover up a wound. We're always covering it up. You don't have to do that. You can actually only cover it, let's say when you go to work or school, you got to play a sport. You got to do something where you might be wearing clothes or whatever. But as much as you can add to the wound what you need, things we've talked about or other things you believe in. But then when you don't need a covering, leave it out. Okay? Now, when you go back and forth, cover it for a little bit, leave it out to the air, cover a little bit, leave it out to the air, you will heal faster. It's just the way it is. You want to get some air. And you think, well, why do I need air? Is there something in the air I need? Yes, that would be the terrain. It's also, when you cover a wound, you are essentially telling the central nervous system there's something touching it. So the sympathetic nervous system is constantly feeling something on it. Call it your central nervous system. I'm using sympathetic so that it's maybe a little bit more visually in your brain, you can kind of see it. The sympathetic system then is feeling like there's something on it all the time. Sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad. Well, in a wound like that, you don't want it. You want it a little bit, so it goes, okay, I'm protected, and then you want to say, oh, now I can relax. Okay? That's why it heals faster going back and forth. If you're constantly covered, the sympathetic it gets a little irritated, it gets stressed out. Eric, you have no science to prove this. I don't need science to prove this. This is one of those things where it's like, go ask grandma or great-great-great-grandma. She'll say, no, you need to uncover that wound. And then she'll say, now I need to cover it. Because you have to go back and forth. She didn't know why. We don't even fully understand why. You gotta let the central nervous system do what it needs to do. It needs to regulate the healing process. This is why going back and forth. I'm making a big deal because if you want to heal faster and it hurts or it's large and it's impacting your life, don't you want to heal faster? I know I do. So when it's not bandaged up like this, keep spraying some colloidal silver on there. Spray some aloe on there. Put other things on there that you like, that you know are healing. Aloe gel. Any number of things we're talking about. Especially eating, bone broth and grass-fed beef and pasture-raised pork and eggs and all the other stuff that gives you, internal healing nutrients. It's not that tough. These are all for minor or major serious wounds. You don't need antibiotics. You don't need anything like that. You know why? Because you have a terrain. What the heck are you talking about? Well, Louis Pasteur, the guy who you know of that said, well, there's germs out there and they cause infection and disease and all kinds of problems. The terrain theory is the opposite. Guess what he said before he died? It is not the germs we need to worry about. It is our inner terrain. That's your healing response. Your healing bacteria, your healing molds, your healing enzymes, your healing yeast, and anything else that is already part of your somatids, your microzyma, just like you have in your garden. Example being your compost that you've been making out in the garden for all these years. That's what the compost is. And you have that in your body too. Works awesome. It's there to heal you. Don't stifle it. Anyway, you don't need antibiotics. You don't need antibiotic cream. You don't need hydrogen peroxide or any of those other kind of things unless it is life-threatening or limb. Like if I don't fix this, I'm losing my hand, right? Then it's a thing. Otherwise, you want to empower your body's healing. There's a lot of things I could tell you about how butter works to heal things and honey works to heal things. Matter of fact, a lot of bee products heal things. There's so many things I can put in here. I'm giving you the most powerful things that I know of and I've seen work. Okay? I hope you like this episode. I like doing it because who doesn't want to get rid of that annoying cut or abrasion or hematoma? Let me know your thoughts. Maybe subscribe. Do all those things that people ask you to do because they do help our channels. Appreciate you guys. Thanks for listening. Thank you as usual.